Hi, it's Chris with EntryThingy. This is the Art of the Call podcast, video podcast, where we're talking to artists, curators, and directors of arts organizations about their call for entry process. And in this episode, we talked to Kathleen Mazei of the Roseville Arts Blueline Gallery in Roseville, California.
So Blueline is a arts nonprofit that works out of an art gallery venue, and the basic mission is just arts and arts education. So there's everything that kind of feeds into that is bringing in teachers for a school group to come and learn more about sculpture, or to have a great competition like the Crocker Kingsley come in to kind of expand more of our community's horizons on contemporary art. A lot of the local institutions aren't in contemporary. Surprisingly, the most important thing is the title, because we put that title everywhere, all over the internet, plus all of our social media sites and everywhere. So we actually find that that's the most eye-catching thing that gets people to come to a call. Being really clear in the instructions is a major one, because we'll have artists that have printed out all the instructions and go like, this is what you told me, this isn't right. So it's always getting those things kind of planned out and set. For a small organization like us, consistency is a big deal too. So it has to be, if we change something major, it has to be very clear why it's a change. And we have to just keep everything the same format. Artists aren't an interesting breed. There's some attention to detail in some areas, but not on the wordiness of things. Just if we have a step-by-step process of how to do things, we need to keep it that way. So if they start out by saying, here's a text box to fill in, kind of an overall description of your submissions, then we need to make that happen first, or not at the end, because people will they'll call me up and be like, where is it? I wanted to put this in. What's happening? And making things just simplified for them too, just so they can quickly enter in all of the information we need. We have two fabulous people here. A consultant curator, Tony Natsoulis, who deals with mostly the Coker space, and then we have Katie Curler, who just got hired. She's kind of dealing with some of the other calls to entries and things like that. But I think she kind of bases it on what will bring a very captivating show to the community. And also so that we're not repeating ourselves. For instance, we have to have certain styles of art coming in, just so that they relate to some of the other shows in the space. For instance, next year we have Reef Erickson coming in. He's a landscape artist, painting, oil painting. So we try to think of something that will relate to that in the backspace for our calls, but won't completely contrast it and make it look like the spaces aren't going together. So Katie came up with Metropolis, so a show centered on urban landscapes, kind of that area. We've just noticed that it helps increase visitation, it helps get us more publicity, it helps get us just more interested in the shows. Specifically because our Coker space is for kind of the more well-known names, whereas our West Park space is for the artists that are still trying to get known in the area, still trying to get their foot in the door in Roseville, California. So we try and keep things not consistent, but complementary. It does depend. For instance, we have an annual show called Totems and Plates. It's a ceramics show. And we've had a lot of success finding, sponsors, specifically from artists that want to sponsor the show and get their name attached to the show, and also ceramic studios in the area, specifically Alpha Fired is a big sponsor for that exhibit. And they help with publicity, everything that we need to fund for that kind of a show. But our big sponsors for some of our bigger fundraisers and events that filter into our calls, into our shows, are local banks, people we can find, institutions. Last year we had a big fundraiser, the Beach Bash, and it was at the Westfield Gallery, and they sponsored it and had us host it there gave us a bunch of money to put it on. So all of that funding kind of comes back into the organization so that we can do more educational programs and have great exhibits. I know Katie's actually working right now on creating a tour based around the current show. So we have school groups that come in. They expect to do about 20 to 25 minutes of going around and talking about the art, seeing the art in person, and then doing an actual physical hands-on project to kind of relate to the themes that they learned. So for an open show like this, I'm not sure what she's going to do, but for instance, the last show was I believe, what was it? Oh no, last show was a landscape show. So I think she kind of related it to different art themes, shapes, colors, depending on the age. More advanced kids, like high school students, we did, oh wait, it was a glass show. It was a huge glass show last time. The exhibit before was a huge glass show. And what she was able to do was, we had huge different styles of glass art. So we had some neon pieces, some hand-blown glass pieces, some fused work. So she was able to relate the techniques to the kids. And especially for the older kids, they were fascinated by the videos we had on display of the artists like doing the actual hand-blowing techniques, and they were so fascinated. I had this little 5-year-old that came in on a Saturday. He just sat in front of that TV watching one of the artists doing these hand-blowing techniques. He was just fascinated. For like 20 minutes he was sitting there. I was so surprised. But the kids really enjoy having a physical representation of the actual theories and techniques they're trying to learn about. I think that really makes the experience so much better. I don't think the general public realize the process. I think the artists obviously have the inside scoop on it, but I always get the question, when we say, Crocker Kingsley was a juried competition exhibition, they're like, oh, what does that mean? And we had to say, oh, we had to find a juror, which happened to be Michael Duncan from Art in America magazine. We had to convince him to come and see the show, brought him up here from LA. He had to see the show. We had to have, there's so much things that go into the call because we have to set up the call, send out, press releases announcing that the call is here and that we're accepting submissions, getting the dates out on every calendar imaginable on the internet, getting just the information out, and then having the support to answer the calls that we get about, why isn't my image uploading? What's this error message I'm getting? Why isn't this happening when I want this to happen? Oh, I messed up, can you undo it? So we get a lot of those phone calls, and it was actually crazy for this show. I believe we had to connect the deadline was like a Sunday night at 12 a.m. or something. So my boss had to actually connect the phone lines to her cell phone so that she could keep taking support calls, because it was just, they're flooding in because everyone was trying to get in by the deadline. So it's a lot of different steps that come into play that I don't think the general public realize. But I think all the steps are necessary to make such a great show happen. We've actually noticed that we get more submissions if we do it by the deadline being like, Monday night or Sunday night, just so that people have the weekend to finish their pieces to the point where they like them enough to make a photograph of them. I've actually had artists that tell me, oh, well, great, I'm accepted, I'll come bring it in, but let me finish the edges first. There's always that, and there's always, I always get one submission a show that is some odd placement of the art piece in furniture or something, and I can see it's like nighttime. Like people are frantically trying to take pictures and get them uploaded. So I think we've noticed the most entries and more entries when we have it on a weekend like that, the end of a weekend. What do we take into consideration? We usually keep them all the same for the entire year. For the bigger competitions or competitions that involve other organizations, we do make them a little more. For instance, this one for the Crocker Kingsley was just a straight $40 cost for 3 submissions, 3 images. And then it went up $5 from there, just because most of the money is going back to the Crocker Kingsley, the Kingsley Art Club. But it kind of depends. I've seen it other places a lot more expensive. But we just try and consider the cost of actually having the program, and then the cost that it takes us to answer questions and answer emails and all that kind of stuff. The planning goes in more so that we push our artists and our members. We don't want them to get stale. We want them to keep pushing themselves and growing. We don't want to see the same art in here over and over again. That's one of the things that we had to put in, I think, in the beginning of January. We were like, cannot have shown here before. We can't keep seeing your same stuff over and over again. We want you to do more and produce more art. Well, for us, it's spelling. I always get a frantic phone call when it goes live. You know, oh, you spelled this wrong. So I check that kind of thing. We need to check the deadlines a lot to make sure that there's enough time between, you know, this is the deadline for submissions. It gives us enough time for our group of jurors that we usually have to jury them. And then another time for the notifications to go out, because it includes an entire packet of information that we have to send out. And then enough time for them to actually physically get it here. We have, I would say, probably 65% hand deliver the art pieces, but the other percent ship them in. So we have to have enough time for that kind of a time to delay for them to get everything in. Another big thing is that everyone in the office that's here know that this just happened, and these are the questions to expect for people to, for them to be calling in about and asking. I think the number one question I've always had is, oh, I hit the submit button too soon. Can you undo it? Can you undo it so I can add more images? I get a lot of questions about that, just because that button is so nice and up there, and everyone wants to push it before they're done. So we usually keep them pretty low, just because we get less questions about problems if we keep it lower. If we're doing a catalog for the show, we have to raise the resolution and everything up higher. Because there's so many submissions, it becomes too long to try and contact each artist to get a better quality and all that kind of stuff. So we're just like, okay, we need to set everything up as the place where we'll get the catalog images. That's it. If people have, a picture in their living room that we can tell it's in their living room, oh well, they'll learn. It's just those kind of considerations that come into play. If we're doing a slideshow online, or if we're doing something like that, we ask for slightly higher, slightly lower, depending. We usually have a diverse group of people that are jurying. For us, we have a group of volunteer artists that are helping us look at the images and choosing them for the shows. We have to remind them that this is the theme, let's keep them all in the theme, but let's get as many diverse kinds of pieces in here that look good together as possible. We never tell them that it affects it. I mean, if the quality is so bad that we can't see the image, then we'll tell them that, oh, that's why we couldn't accept your piece this time. Please try again. Important in the jury process is mainly space. We are very limited in space here, especially storage. So if the piece is to sit here for a while, we need to make sure that everything is okay with the piece. Another part of the jurying is that they fit the theme. If they can't do that simple kind of instruction, then we're like, okay, this is why we didn't pick this. For next time, here are the upcoming ones, try and fit this better. But we're really open about it. If an artist can explain why they think their piece should be in the show, then we're usually okay with it. But we have a jury panel that has a wide different tastes, so it's always by point system. So it's, this person gave this person a 5, but this person gave this person a 2. So it kind of, it's interesting picking them.
So is there a back and forth between the jurors? It sounds like there's a back and forth between the jurors and the artists. So
there is, and then Katie comes in and makes the final decisions about what pieces can be in here and what pieces kind of can't. But we average them out first, and then we kind of get an idea of that. And then the next step is to say, okay, this piece is not going to fit because it's, 6 feet. It's not gonna fit. So just those kind of considerations go into play. Oh, we're having a rental in December. We can't have 30 sculpture pedestals hanging around. Oh, we have a school tour that wants to come in and look at, these kind of two-dimensional pieces in this area. Oh, we need to get a couple more of those. Those kinds of things go into consideration about the space also. Yeah, total conversation, because we have to send them, here are the deadlines once again, these are the shipping requirements, these are the, we have an agreement they have to sign, like insurance-wise and liability-wise. Here's what we'd like you to do, friend us on Facebook, be active on social media sites, those kinds of things where we try and encourage them to participate more and interact, because it's great having your piece in the show, but if the community can't really interact with you about it and hear more about your style or your techniques, then how are they ever going to know who you are? Social media is amazingly complex, surprisingly, but it's such an important part that I didn't realize it when I first started here, that simply just posting on, spending the time, half an hour or whatever, to post on all of our friends' sites and all of our people that are following us and all of those kind of places really does get the word out. And especially for upcoming calls, this is the deadline, make the deadline, there was it gets the word out so much easier. It's amazing. Our third Saturdays are a huge community-wide event, so all of the businesses on the street are open. They all advertise together on Facebook and all the social media sites everywhere. But what happens specifically is that we have a special hour time where just our members and artists can speak, where it's just, they want to come and they want to socialize with you and they want to know about your art. And then another 3 hours where the public comes in and talks to you about your art. So we try and really encourage the artists to come in, really, we'll introduce you to all of the kind of people we know that are coming, all of our members that really want to speak to you. We'll introduce you, we'll get that conversation started, and we really encourage our artists to participate, because you have to try, you have to be involved, and it's definitely a community effort.
So if artists can come to an opening, that's better.
It's a big deal, yeah. If they're coming, that means that we can, introduce you to the curator or other community organizations. We can introduce you to some of our board members that love your art. We can introduce you to the people that are buying your art too, which is a really big help. I think, in my perspective, a show is really successful when the show itself on display has a really nice flow to it. You can see all the pieces. They're all nicely individualized kind of in their area. They're very clear, very concise. Bringing in tons of people is always great, but what do we get from all those people coming in? Is it, smaller sales, bigger sales, just membership? I know my curator and my director base it on sales. I base it on, the education it brings to the schools and the kids that come in, just because they're the ones that enjoy it the most, I think.